Welcome to Arm Wrestling with COVID-19 in London, number 28, the first of my occasional personal reflections. Professor Devi Sridhar is Chair of Global Public Health at the University of Edinburgh. She is also an advisor to the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, on coronavirus guidelines, and is a frequent guest on our news channels, such as BBC Two Newsnight. For me, it's a pleasure listening to her no-nonsense statements on COVID-19 that are delivered affably, without spin and without fanfare. No wonder she has more than 140,000 followers on Twitter. So her tweet of 8 July, which was widely circulated and retweeted, particularly caught my attention. And why, you might ask? Because she referred to her own US state of Florida, as well as countries like Israel, Spain, and Iran, where there has been a worrying spike in the number of cases of coronavirus. In fact, according to the New York Times figures, Florida and Arizona lead the world's worst outbreaks per 1 million residents. This suggests to me, not a scientist, mind you, that a resurgence of the new coronavirus, and it is a resurgence which I think is somewhat different from a second wave of flu, is now inevitable. Professor Sridhar suggests in one of her tweets that a lockdown in the UK could well be imminent in the next few months, if not also earlier. This comes at a time when Public Health England published a list for the week ending 21st June of confirmed COVID-19 cases per 100,000 population in places like Leicester, Bradford, Rochdale, and Barnsley. In fact, the R rate across England, which measures whether an outbreak is growing, has crept up. And the WHO is also warning that we are not necessarily traveling in the right direction. And by the way, in a separate tweet, Professor Sridhar also admonished her followers of post-COVID-19 long-term complications, not only for the vulnerable people, not only for the shielded people, not only for residents in care homes or those with underlying problems, but also for long haulers and young age groups. But all this unsettling news comes at a time when the lockdown is being relaxed almost every few days in England, and a bit more slowly in the other 3 nations. And why this easing of the lockdown? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is after 3.5 months, give or take, there has been growing frustration, there has been impatience, people are fed up. Especially people who are cooped up in flats without parks, without gardens, and they just want to go out. They want to go out to pubs, they want to go out to restaurants eventually, they want to go to cinemas, beaches, barber shops, houses of worship, and there is so much you can do to contain people week in, week out without those levels of frustration and anger at some stage creeping up, without cases of depression, without even, unfortunately, cases of domestic abuse. But there is also another reason, of course, and that is the economic concerns by the government that we were sinking rapidly into a major recession. Global, yes, but also in our country. In fact, unemployment figures, even if the economy picks up as a consequence of a strong consumer boost, will be noticeably high and dramatic. And that will probably manifest itself sometime around end September, early October, when all those furlough schemes also come to an end. But does this mean that the government has yielded once more to the arguments of herd immunity? Is that why they're telling everybody, go out, enjoy yourselves? No, there are still guidelines. And I don't frankly think that that is where the government is going now. But yes, we are being inconsistent and we are flip-flopping, as we have been since the start of this pandemic, in our measures and our guidelines. Earlier this week, for instance, the Prime Minister suggested that we might be asked to wear masks more regularly. Perhaps this is because the WHO spoke about particles that are airborne and that could be carrying the virus. It's perhaps because there are congestions in shops and supermarkets, etc., etc. I don't know. But the question is not there for me. For me, the question is, why did he raise this issue of the masks today? Why is he talking about possibly we might have to do it tomorrow? And why not yesterday? Wasn't it sensible? Wasn't it the common sense thing to do, to sort of say, okay, wear the mask, even if it does not help, it will not hurt. I was talking to somebody today as I was entering into my flat. And as he was talking to me, I literally saw particles of saliva shoot out of his mouth, which is normal for people when they're talking. Fortunately, I was quite a distance away from him. He didn't have a mask on, but I did, so I felt comfortable. Where is the problem in that? And why ask? Why not tell people that it is in the whole interest of the whole country that we work together against this pandemic, that we help each other, that we adopt measures even if they're inconvenient or not entirely persuasive to all of us, but that might actually help us during those difficult weeks and difficult situations? Or is it that I'm missing something about the workings, the thinking related to neoliberal democracies? Is it that it's not the done thing, that you can't ask people to wear masks, you can't ask people not to congregate, you can't ask people to respect physical distancing because it infringes their human rights? I don't know, I'm a lawyer, I've done a lot of human rights cases, but I think there are exceptions, and in my opinion, those precautionary measures congregate into those brackets of exceptions, but I might be wrong. However, I come back to the same theme, that we are all in this together. And look what's happened since we've been relaxing, since the world has been relaxing its rules. The news coming out of Japan. Look at Latin America. Look at Peru, for instance, where they are feeling the brunt of this nasty virus in countries where there is endemic poverty and where health systems are pretty much crumbling under the weight of all those patients. Or even in Brazil, where despite the president who is trying to be macho about it and showing that he doesn't really worry about the virus and wants to burnish his credentials, people are worried. Different people living in different parts of the country with different socioeconomic classifications. If we ever will have a chance to manage this easing of the lockdown more successfully, and minus a vaccine that we will get tomorrow or the day after, which frankly we will not until 2021 if we're lucky, we need to improve one thing, in my opinion, and that is the track and trace procedures we have. It really is our only saving grace today, globally. And the countries who've done it have shown far better results than the countries that haven't managed to do it properly. Nothing else will manage to contain the spread of the virus by tracking it, by tracing it, and by taking the precautionary measures. Nothing really. And if we're convinced, as I think we are, that the economy cannot be neglected any further, then we're in that quandary that I've spoken about for so many times. Lives versus livelihoods. Yes, we recognize that livelihoods are important. Shops are excited, beauty salons are excited, everybody is excited to open their shops and their businesses. But what about the lives side of the equation? And that is why we have to find the means of making sure that livelihoods do not swamp lives. Remember, we have well over 40,000 who have died as a result of this pandemic. So we need to grow up a bit, I think. Be and act more responsibly and apply all our energies for the track and trace measures today, until such time as we get a breakthrough defined as what? Defined as a vaccine. Or else, frankly, we are in a pickle. Stay safe.